How's it going, guys? My name is Tavarish, and today my cheap Lamborghini is getting some braces. So if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for joining us. Hope you guys like it and subscribe if you like what you see. Hopefully you guys like what you see because it has taken a lot of work to get here. But if you're not new to the channel and you have been subscribed and you have been watching these, then you are just the best kind of person. So thank you very, very much. This, if you guys didn't know already, is my 2008 Lamborghini Gallardo Spider. It's being put back together. Today, we're gonna get dirty. I think I got a little bit dirty handling some parts earlier today, but I want to start in the back of the car and work my way to the front because I'm gonna work on the intercooler system for this turbo Gallardo. Now, the intercooler in a usual car, in a regular, more pedestrian car with a turbocharger system, consists of a few things. Now you have the turbocharger, which produces all the boost, and that's where all the cool noises and all the power happens. And then you have the intake piping, the turbo piping, which leads from the turbo, and that goes into the intake. But before it goes into the intake, it has to go through something called an intercooler. Now what the intercooler does is it cools down the charge from the turbo. See, the turbo heats up the air because when you compress air, you heat it up. And what the intercooler does is it cools it down, makes it a little more dense, and makes more power in the engine. So you can do this in a few ways. Most cars that have turbocharger systems have an air-to-air intercooler, meaning that the air goes in, it goes through all these fins, usually in the front of the engine, and then it comes out colder than when it left. And that's how you make more power. That's how it's done on cars like the Supra that you probably can't see because it's off screen. It's done in a lot of factory cars. And it's a pretty efficient system if you want to make up to a certain amount of power and you have enough space in the engine bay, especially if you have an engine in the front and you can put the front mount intercooler right there. All the intake piping is situated right in the front of the car. But we don't have that because one, the engine is going to make a lot of power, at least I hope so. And the engine, as you can see, is in the back of the car, so it doesn't have a ton of airflow coming from the front. So what this car has, and cars like it have, is called an air-to-water intercooler, meaning that there's water pumped in to a regular intercooler, just like you would have an air-to-air, except the water takes the heat and it exchanges it for cooler temperatures. Now, it's a little bit more consistent and it's a little bit more efficient, especially if you have not a lot of space to do it. Now, race cars have this. They usually have air-to-water intercoolers for race applications and high horsepower cars as well. So with this car, it was a little bit odd in the way that they designed it. Well, when I first got the car. So this thing that I just held up before, this is called a heat exchanger. Now, it's almost the same thing as an air-to-air intercooler, except it's for water. Now you see these ports right here. These ports are just for the water inlet and outlet, and there are actually 4 of them because there's a lot of water going through the system. The issue is that when I got the car, this was basically right here in the back of the engine. Back of the engine bay, like just right here. As you can imagine, the back of the engine bay doesn't get a lot of air flowing through it. It's actually a really bad place because you have the hot engine, you have the transmission that's heating up, and you have the exhaust coming out right here. So there's actually not a ton of air coming in at all. I mean, usually you'd put a fan or something on here if you're in a place where it doesn't have too much air going through. But yeah, this just wasn't done. So what I've seen on a lot of turbo Lamborghini builds is that they put this thing in the front of the car and they just run lines all the way back here. Now, this car already has lines run because I have an ice box up there. It's basically a box that you fill with water and ice and just to make sure that you have enough water for the system. And that actually runs all the way back. And it runs, there's like 4 lines going to and from the front of the car. So maybe I'll want to simplify that in the future, but since we already have lines run, I figured we can put this thing in the front and also make it a cool little front mount intercooler looking thing because that's sort of what it is. So in order to do that, I am going to have to take off the front bumper. I'm going to have to make sure that these brackets can go somewhere. And then I just bolt it on. Hopefully I can find a place to do it. I'm not gonna mess anything up because those bumpers are pretty expensive. That front bumper, it's like $4,000. So then I'm going to run the lines, even though I don't think I'm gonna run the lines in this episode because I am redoing all the AN fittings and the lines coming from the front of the car are not in great shape. They were burned by the fire and just debris, and it's just a mess. So what I have to do now is take off that bumper, and I've never actually done it before. All right, now that we're in the front of the car, this is basically what I have to work with. I have never taken this apart before, and it doesn't look like it's been worked on to the best of, standards. So this is the ice box, water box, whatever you want to call it, and it's actually, it's like an eighth full of water, and it's just standing water, and it smells pretty bad. The good thing, and perhaps the bad thing about it, is that this box, I thought it was bolted down or something. It's actually not bolted down. I can just remove it, and all I have to do is hopefully just take out these lines, and then I can just take it out of this space. Now, hopefully I can make sure that this doesn't go back, because I'd like to have this in the back so I can have some room for something, because I want to take this car on road trips. So we're gonna have to figure something out for that. If you guys can recommend maybe a smaller tank or something like that, then I think that can work. And maybe I'll have to make my own. I don't know. It literally just looks like a box with some fittings, so it shouldn't be that bad. But right now we have to take this all out. I don't actually know where any of the bolts go. So wish me luck. Fingers crossed. So I bet you've never seen one of these taken apart before. I certainly never have. So this is the Gallardo without its front bumper. Everything is naked here, and there actually is a decent amount of space if we move some things around. Now, right off the bat, you can see that there's a few things that need to get moved right away. The horns, which are just set with some 10mm bolts, so we'll have to relocate those. Hopefully the harness is long enough that we can put it somewhere. And also this controller right here, I don't know if you guys can see that, but I thought that it was for the airbag system. It's actually a tire pressure monitoring sensor, so we can definitely move that somewhere. And this, so just to offer it up, this should slot in something like that. Looking at the camera, it looks so awesome. Looks pretty cool. So yeah, that has to go really actually pretty tight to the body, because I don't have a ton of room to put this. And then we'll have to figure out how to mount it. So maybe I'll just drill some holes, or I can just use this bottom mounting right here. And yeah, we could actually, we might be able to just use that bottom mounting piece and then put this guy up like this. Yeah, that actually could work. So yeah, first things first, we need to get all this stuff out. So gotta take off the horns and the tire pressure monitoring, and also these other little guys, and just zip tie them to the side. Okay, so we're going handheld. I want to show you what I have to do. Now, there actually is a decent amount of space here, and we have removed everything from the front, but this air-to-water intercooler, or rather the heat exchanger, it fouls on this part of the frame rail here. And this is actually just an aluminum panel here. And what I want to do is I want to put a little slit, like right here, and then just bang this in just a little bit. I don't think it's going to be a problem, because as you can see, there's a slit right here. It's not really doing anything to the structural integrity. I'm not an engineer, but I think it should be okay. That means I can use these mounts. All I have to do is put a bolt and a nut through, and this should actually fit really well. Okay, now I'm going to show you something pretty cool. Since I don't want there to be a lot of nuts and bolts that can get loose, I'm going to actually make this an all bolt-on affair. That means just 2 bolts and I can take it right out. Well, other than taking out the lines. So what I'm going to use is a tool called a Nutsert Tool. And this is basically like a rivet. Well, I guess they're called riv nuts as well. But I just use this. It's just like a rivet gun, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that for this little bracket right here. So I'm just going to put these threaded inserts screwed down. Then I should just be able to do one of these like that. Then it should come right out, and bam. Now we have a captive nut, and I have a regular 10 mil. The 10 mil should fit, and there we go, it fits. And this is going to be a very elegant and very simple solution. Now you can buy these things at Amazon. I actually bought mine on Amazon, and they're pretty good as far as when you have to do mounting stuff. I wouldn't trust these with a lot of weight on them, but for something like this, which is usually lightweight aluminum, I said aluminum, it's aluminum here in the States. For something that's lightweight and doesn't really need a whole lot of support, then these are perfect. This is just basically to locate the part. Oh yeah, take a look at that. That looks really, really good. Now it almost looks like an air to water. That's exactly what it is. It almost looks like an air to air intercooler, but it's not. Now the only problem that I have is right here. You can see that this line is going to be in the way of this tow hook, but I think that's just going to be something I have to live with, because I don't want to raise this up too much because then it's going to interfere with everything up here. So it's also going to be blocked. I want this to have a nice flow of air, especially because the slit from the bumper, it's going to be like down here. So if I raise it up, then the slit's basically going to be doing nothing. So I'm going to make a shroud at some point, but right now I just want to open that bumper up. And then I don't think we're going to make the lines today, because I have to take a measurement of all the lines, not just the coolant lines, but it's going to be the water lines, coolant lines, and fuel lines. And I'm going to have to make everything work and order everything from scratch. So that's going to be for another day, but right now I want to get that bumper modified, and we are going to put it on and check out our handiwork. All right, so I have the bumper taken apart. I took out the carbon fiber bit. That's actually going to need to be replaced because it is cracked on the bottom, even though that's probably going to be later on. Now there is a little removable part right here. This is actually black plastic, and what's interesting is that even though it's removable, it doesn't actually do anything. So if I remove these 2 screws, it's just actually it's not plastic, it's metal. Well, it better be, because this bumper is like $4,000. So if you take this off, it's just a metal piece, and it's just black backing. Yeah, so it looks like it's an air intake, but it's really not. So what I want to do is instead of me just opening this up and having it look a little bit ugly, I'm going to leave these screw bosses here. That way I can still put the metal part in, and it'll be functional. It'll kind of be a cool little scoop, and it should be as functional as the left and right side. So I just have my Dremel here with a cutoff wheel, and I'm gonna try to go to town, not cut out too much, and I wanna see what I can get away with without having it foul on the heat exchanger. But we're gonna have to cut more anyway, maybe, we'll see. But yeah, let's cut into a $4,000 bumper. I'm a little nervous. All right, let's see if this finally fits. I don't know if it will, but it looks like there's a decent amount of space behind this bumper. So just gotta finagle it in place, and hopefully it should all go right back the way it was. Bam! Look at that! Oh man! So it's actually fouling on the bumper right here. So what I can do is I can lift it up a little bit higher, but that should be That should be pretty good. Oh, that looks really stealth. That looks really good. All right, let me see if I can move it a little bit higher and then we should be good to go. Okay guys, I did a little bit more work off camera and I had to close the garage door because all the bugs were coming in. This is Florida after all, but I am done. And I actually opened up this space a little more. I got rid of that metal piece. I don't know if you can see this, but yeah, you can see the heat exchanger right there. It is awesome. Everything fits and it looks like it belongs there. Now there is a little bit of a gap here, but that's because the underbody is just disconnected. So that gap is gonna go away. So I'm not going to button everything down right now because I do have to run the lines and I have to make sure that all of those fit. And I might even paint that heat exchanger black just so it kind of looks like the stock stuff. I don't want this to necessarily have a outlandish look, even though it is a Lamborghini. So yeah, we did it. I finally got the heat exchanger out from that nasty mess that was on the back of the car. Now again, I will be doing a shroud on the inside just so it gets a little bit more airflow, but this should get a lot more airflow than the back. So really pleased, but I'm rambling again. So I think that's it. Well, I told you in my last episode that I would be getting dirty, and we certainly fit that bill. So we got this done. I am so pleased. We are one step closer to this thing running and running well. Now, everything that I did is pretty bolt-on. I didn't do anything that's irreversible other than just cutting a little bit, but I honestly don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I look forward to running the lines. I look forward to maybe painting these brake calipers. That's going to be fun. And I look forward to having this thing start because I sort of forgot what a Lamborghini engine sounds like. And I think this thing needs to give me a little reminder. So if you'd like to contact me, you can do so at @TheRealTavarish. That is Instagram and Twitter. Facebook.com/AskTavarish and AskTavarish@gmail.com is my email. I read every single one of your emails. If you'd like to buy this shirt, well, not this shirt, this one is filthy. If you want to buy a clean version of this shirt and tell everybody that you are the warranty, then links will be in the description below. And if you want to listen to me talk about cars with my friend Andrew Howell, I have a daily podcast called Wrench Every Day. Links for that will be in the description below. You guys should check it out. You guys should subscribe. It's a lot of fun. So until next time, this is me telling you that on cars like this that are one step closer and now have some pretty nice grills, you guys need to wrench every day.